It is recording.
Okay, I'm calling the meeting to order. Comments from citizens present. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the committee?
Hi, this is Dave Lorman, if I may.
Hey, Dave, go ahead.
Thank you. Just revisiting the ordinance to prohibit the use of motorized toys vehicles in the Conservancy.
Yes.
I had a chance to see the comments also from the Friends of Pheasant branch, and interestingly, it coincided with a video that was released last week, promoting Pheasant Branch and looking for citizen donation and participation in the raising of, I think, seed money for the expansion. And they pointed out really how the ordinance contradicts the FAA guidelines that permit the legal use of UAS operation craft. And I did a little bit more research on it as well. I would ask that you just strike that language from the ordinance. If the ordinance wants to read prohibit the use of motorized toys on water and land, that would be fine. But to require a commercial UAS operator to go to the city and actually request operation within the Conservancy airspace isn't legal in my interpretation of the FAA regulations, and really based on the comments from the Friends of Pheasant branch. So that's really about it. And I know that Dan has received some drafted emails, a little bit more technical details on that from myself and also a commercial drone operator in Middleton. And that's it, thanks.
Thank you. We'll discuss that when we get to that item then, okay, Dave? All right.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay. Moving on to approval of the September 8th, 2020 minutes.
This is Katie. I will move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. License and permits. Number 1, application for a combination Class B beer and Class B liquor quota license by Middleton Express LLC, doing business as Holiday Inn Express at 8353 Murphy Drive. Luke Schoffer, Madison agent.
So this is just, they were actually on the waiting list. They already had a fermented malt beverage license approved a couple months ago, and then they were waiting for the full liquor license, which opened up now. A quota license did, because Common Ground has given up their license because they shut down. So it is a quota license. Nothing changed on those backgrounds in the last couple months since we last ran them. So no issues from the PD's point of view there.
I would move approval.
Yeah, I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 2, application for Class B fermented malt beverage and Class B reserve intoxicating liquor license by K Golf Middleton LLC, doing business as X Golf Middleton, 1620 Deming Way, Suite 102, Middleton, Wisconsin. Seth Klug, Oregon, Wisconsin agent.
And I'll just start before Seth and Aaron. It looks like they're both here to give some information, but they had requested to be put on the waiting list. According to Lori, what she got from them is that they want to be on the waiting list for a quota license. We don't have one right now, so they were looking forward to moving on with a full reserve license. So if you have any questions for them or if they want to comment.
Yeah, so apologies, I don't know exactly how this works, but I really appreciate the time, everyone. Aaron and I are looking to open a X-Golf franchise in Middleton, in the address that is listed. X-Golf is an indoor golf simulator business. it's going to have 7 simulators. It's got a full bar and food menu. As part of a franchisee, we have at our disposal the resources of 24 other successful X-Golf locations currently in North America. There's about another 10 that are opening up in the next 6 months across the United States. We're prepared to follow all the applicable guidelines of food and beverage safety. At the same time, prepared to adhere to any of the local ordinances that everyone has. I'm happy to field any questions, any more details, please let me know.
I just forgot to give you guys, I did run the backgrounds. There's no issues that I see with either of them. So if you have any questions, there's no issues from the police department standpoint.
Do you guys have any questions? Kathy?
I don't.
Okay. Dan? Okay, I'll move that we approve this permit.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the liquor license? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron and Seth, you can stick around certainly, but there's no need for you to. So
Perfect. Thanks so much, guys.
you bet.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Good night.
Ordinance, an ordinance to amend parking restrictions on Donna Drive.
And this one came from Public Works, as you guys can see, just a change because they put an island in there. I think you probably saw the memo, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory there.
I move that we amend the parking restriction on Donna Drive.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries. Ordinance, an ordinance to create a deposit amount for mailbox parking violations.
Yeah, it looks like we forgot to add this when we adopted the ordinance. We had kind of drafted the language to see whether we wanted to do it, and then after all the discussion, I didn't remember to create a deposit amount for this. So just going back and cleaning up.
Okay.
And this is in line with our updated.
Yes.
Okay, I'd move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hey, Dan, have you heard any feedback on this at all?
So far, nobody's complained that they've had to report anybody that I've heard.
No, and I haven't heard of any at the PD either. So
Okay.
I do have, Matt, I do have a question that I did get from a constituent. Can they post a sign on their mailbox then?
I think they can. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
Well, they want to be neighborly about it, and it's more neighborly if there's a sign that warns people that.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer that in any enforcement situations that we be able to at least say that there was some kind of sign, but as we discussed, it was too difficult for the ordinance to really specify too clearly exactly what signage had to be up there. But yeah, I guess I would encourage people to put up a sign.
Very good, thank you.
Good. Okay, hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 3, an ordinance relating to bicycles, electric scooters, and similar vehicles in conservancy.
So this, we had looked at this before and sent it, did both parks and, yeah, no, this is just conservancy stuff. CLC to take a look at this, and what they recommended is also adding allowance of the various kinds of electric bicycles, which is different than the motor bicycles. But I think that's the idea is all addressed, I think, in that letter from Pheasant Branch, Friends of Pheasant Branch Conservancy. That was one of the things that they had recommended. I believe that's what CLC.
So basically, anywhere a bicycle is allowed, the electric bicycle would be allowed also within a certain speed limit.
Right. I think that makes sense. Yeah, we don't set a speed limit. The electric bicycles, so we still have in the motor bicycles that, let's see, I'm just trying to remember. Well,
May
maybe-
not. Okay.
I'm trying to remember if we allow the motor to be engaged. But at any rate, with the electric bicycles, the class 3 ones are, we'd been talking about like a 25 mile per hour, but we didn't do that because it's, really, we're not going to have anybody running radar or anything. So the class 3 electric bicycle does get up to 28. So it is a little faster, but at least by definition, the speed should be limited as that being the top speed. And that does not necessarily mean that, that's what's safe or permitted, but.
Okay. I see
So-
the language is struck. It says where motor bicycles are permitted, the motor shall not be used, and that language has been
Oh,
struck.
right. Yeah,
Oh,
we did decide
okay.
to strike that, yeah.
Okay.
So in the spot where you have electric bicycles as defined by Wisconsin statutes, does that then take into account the 3 different classes?
Yeah,
That's
there's
what the Friends wanted us to do is,
right. There are subsections to 15 PH, and those describe the 3 different classes. So that's incorporated by that reference.
all right, very good, thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Any further, do we have a motion on this?
I'll move that we adopt the ordinance relating to bicycles, electric scooters, and similar vehicles in the Conservancy.
Do we have to say as amended or anything like that?
Well, this is a draft, isn't it?
I don't know.
Is this a draft or are we voting as
Or are we
amended?
I think you can just move to approve the ordinance that's in your packet. This is what's in your packet is what CLC recommended. So if you want something different, you'll have to change it. But if you want as amended by CLC, all you need to do is a motion to approve the ordinance that's in the packet.
That's my motion.
I'll second.
This didn't have to go to parks or anything, did it?
No, these are only
Conservancy regulations. Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, number 4, an ordinance to prohibit the use of motorized toy vehicles in conservancy lands and waters.
So this, I think I need to go back and maybe Jeremy, I might have misinterpreted what CLC had done with this. I mean, the ordinance that's in your packet is the same as what was sent to CLC. There had been a suggestion of basically specifically saying that motorized boats and stuff could only be used at Lakeview Park under the idea that was really the only appropriate place. But I think there are a few other parks that do have some water where, they're not really a conservancy type of use. So I didn't know that it was the best idea to just within the scope of what we were considering specifically limit them only to Lakeview Park, but I mean, that's certainly something we could consider doing. What I don't recall now is I didn't realize this Friends of Pheasant Branch letter did also go and address the drone issue. And I don't know, as I sit here, what CLC's recommendation was as to the drones. I will say with regard to the comment that was there, I mean, this certainly is not going to require, all commercial users to get permission, and we still have the clause in there that, you know, if they're basically just passing through, the operator isn't within the conservancy and is just using the airspace in accordance with federal rules, that this does not apply. But to the extent we do have, you know, commercial operators or, you know, a lot of researchers or amateur researchers that are using drones, you know, we do have this case by case language, and as I sit here, I don't know exactly what CLC's recommendation was with regard to that.
So, Matt, I'm just looking at that email that came from Mark Wagner.
Yeah.
He said the biggest item for change was a line referring to maybe authorized on a case-by-case basis by the Conservancy Lands Committee, and said it should be changed to maybe authorized on a case-by-case basis by the Public Lands Director or his appointee.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Because that's what I did. I'm sorry. I did change from the previous version. I did change that. I put on authorized on a case by cases by the Director of Public Lands rather than having it go to CLC.
There was one other thing. He said there's also a request in regards to the mention of boats as the only applicable place to use a motorized boat would be in Lakeview Park. The wording of the ordinance should reflect that. So that's kind of what you talked about. It says otherwise there's room for confusion for people who may not know where the park ends and the conservancy starts. And he cites Tiedemann and Stricker.
Yeah, and I don't know that I really followed that. When I looked at just the city map, you know, it seemed to me that there were other parks that did have some water features that, you know, maybe they aren't appropriate. But, you know, it didn't seem that, it wasn't clear to me either whether this was strictly Mark's recommendation or whether this was CLC's recommendation either.
Well, part of it came from CLC and trying to figure out a way to make it work. But one of the things that's causing a great deal of consternation is the idea that people would have to get a permit. So, and there seems to be, and the more I hear, the more confused I seem to get with the FAA rules and regulations as it pertains to drones. And my understanding is that the FAA is working on some new guidelines for that. So I guess I'm not sure if we're ready for prime time for this, not knowing what those regulations are going to be and how we incorporate that in the ordinance where we're not, you know, overly regulating something that we can't regulate.
Well, I don't think that's I don't think that's a real concern. I mean, I don't think there's any question under FAA regulations that we can tell people whose feet are standing in where the operator is in conservancy lands that they cannot operate within the conservancy. And that's, you know, really all that's done. Now, where we might be getting in to some uncharted territory is, you know, it's one thing for, you know, a pretty standard commercial operator that's just passing through, you know, we wouldn't enforce anything of that. But for instance, you know, I guess I don't know that I know the full universe of commercial operators that might, for instance, come in and you know, be outside the conservancy, but, you know, do some surveying and things where, you know, that might be in accordance with FAA rules. You know, do we create some kind of problem with maybe not knowing all the FAA rules as well as we should? That could be an issue. But I don't think, I mean, the language of the ordinance does not prohibit anything that we can't prohibit.
Okay. I just, at this point, I'm getting, you know, we started this out trying to, or we thought that we were solving a potential issue. And I think what we're doing is we just seem to be creating more issues.
Well, this started out with the boats. So are you saying, what if we just address that the boats can only be used at Lakeview? Is that what-
Well, I mean,
Exactly.
or
Exactly.
alternatively, I mean, as Mr. Lorman would suggest, is this, do we maybe put this on the shelf for a while and see if we actually have another problem? I mean, on the one hand, it just seemed like kind of a no-brainer that, yeah, I mean, that's not an appropriate place for motorboats and stuff. And then a lot of what we've got in here seemed to naturally flow from that idea, but then we do kind of get into this other territory where, where do we draw the line? And one way to not have to worry about drawing the line is to not draw it at all. And I'm starting to maybe come around to the idea that
Yeah.
perhaps we put this on the shelf and we revisit it if all of a sudden we start seeing more boats and things, and then maybe the problem starts to draw the line, helps us draw the line, for us.
And that's exactly where I'm leaning. Exactly where I'm leaning. So I would make that motion.
Total status quo.
A motion to table the ordinance?
Motion to table the ordinance for the time being. We have all the draft language and everything. If we need it, we can bring it back. It's all the legwork's been done.
I will second it.
Further discussion. I like that. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Emphatically.
Motion to table. Okay. Okay, let's see. Miscellaneous. A discussion on the future approval process for special events during the COVID pandemic.
And I think I'll let Laura talk to this mostly, but she and I just conversed via email. The New Year's Day Dash has kind of started asking about permitting process and whatnot. And based on the current pandemic, we're kind of looking for guidance, I guess, from you guys, because in the past we did kind of like a preliminary approval and say come back, but at the same time I'm thinking a bigger event like that probably doesn't want to plan the event not knowing whether or not it's going to.
So tentative, yeah.
So Laura, I know you've had contact with them if you want to speak to your end of things.
Yeah, thanks. I think I just wanted to get some feedback and have a discussion with you all on what you foresee as, and I think Garrett knows that the likelihood of him having this race on New Year's Day is highly unlikely, but he, on the off chance that it might be possible, he wants to have all of his ducks in a row. And I think he was wondering what kind of requirements we would have, or what you would need to see in order to approve his application. And well, I know that we'd likely want to see a detailed safety plan. I wanted to know if there's anything else specific that you for sure want to have in order to feel comfortable approving. And maybe you will never feel comfortable approving something, I don't know. But I did a little bit of digging just to see what's out there. There are some great guidelines that might get the ball rolling for an event organizer to start creating a document. But the Parks Department also, while they haven't been allowing reservations for shelters, they have been allowing people to reserve green space. And I reached out, Carrie Schneck provided just some language that she's been asking for in order to approve a reservation, and I can read that to you all. I'm thinking we could do something similar, as long as it sounds like something all would go along with. Let me bring it up here. So she would like to see a plan outlining how you will implement program changes / modifications to comply with forward days phases. The plan should include details on how you will implement social distancing, program modifications to reduce the risk of COVID spread, sanitization, how you will conduct contact tracing, how you will communicate COVID precautions to program participants, and any other relevant factors. Then she just goes on to mention that they need to obviously social distance and follow any forward dates. Minimum. forward the maximum capacity. So right now we're at 25 for an outdoor gathering.
Mm-hmm. Who has put that document together?
That was just something that Carrie with Parks provides when somebody wants to reserve a green space right now.
Okay.
Just to kind of know, what areas they need to be thinking about. And
where does this New Year's run start, or where does it take place at? Kiva, okay.
Yep. And I found there is, some great resources. The CDC puts out, they call it their event and gathering readiness and planning tool. It's super comprehensive. It has a ton of checklists that I think would be really helpful for event organizers. It covers everything from policies and procedures, facilities and supplies, education and training, and this is all relating to COVID, communication and messaging, and then for preparing for if someone does get sick, what to do before, what to do while, and what to do after someone gets sick, and then communication and messaging. So I feel like that would be a great checklist to kind of provide to these folks.
Well, I'm one who would always go to the side of caution. So anything that we would have would be, in my opinion, would be good. But I don't know what you think, Dan and Katie.
I like the language that the parks had. I think that addressed a lot of the thing. It's difficult to say what we need because we just don't know where we'll be. It's hard to plan, and I can understand the frustration by groups because it's got to be maddening to try to plan anything even 3 months from now, 6 months from now, because we just have no idea where we'll be.
Okay.
But having said that, the language that you read that the Parks Department uses, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty comprehensive.
I agree.
And would, at least when they came to us, then they would have been thinking about it and have some answers potentially for some of the concerns.
Laura, would you mind going over that list again just quickly?
Sure, no problem. Yeah, mainly I just want to have a starting point for them so that they are prepared. I don't want to waste the committee's time in approving events that clearly they have, given no thought to how they're going to.
Right. I think this is important. Yeah.
Okay. So it says here, she requires a plan from you outlining how you will implement program changes / modifications to comply with Forward Dane's phases. The plan should include details on how you will implement social distancing, program modifications to reduce the risk of COVID spread, sanitization, how you will conduct contact tracing, how you will communicate COVID precautions to program participants, and any other relevant factors.
Okay. I like that.
Can I ask a quick question? Are there limits to a number of people in an outside run at this point?
Right now, they would have to follow the mass gathering put by Forward Dane, and that's 25 participants. So, and that would be including staff. So, it would be impossible to do right now.
Yeah.
It's only if these get loosened, the restrictions get loosened, or something major is going to have to happen in order for this to even be somewhat feasible.
Right. And we're requiring some money for the permit if we grant one, right?
Yes, I've been doing a lot of reimbursements this year. So
well, that's what I was wondering.
Taken place. They do.
What can we do to lessen their risk in that department? So that's good. Okay. Ugh, it's so unknown. I just.
Well, I don't think it really falls under special events exactly, but Forward Dane and in Dane County allowing the trick or treating. I'm getting calls on that people they don't feel comfortable with that, and Middleton is, and so I don't know. The police, how I understand it, Middleton Police, they just follow what Dane County sets forward for hours and stuff. So that's how that goes. So, and let's see. Laura, you had mentioned an event that they were talking about for Saturday. Is that off the books now?
That is still likely happening. It's in Stonehorse Green.
So they don't have a permit for that though.
They do not, and nor do they require what they are not planning to have any amplified sound. And right now, there currently is a requirement that they would need to have a permit.
What's the event?
It's a workout. Peter Kraus Fitness is looking to have a workout in that area. They won't let it more than 25 people be in the area, and it's for Madison's virtual fitness week. So they're going to be streaming it to Facebook, Instagram, and yeah, I think they just wanted a place to record it, and it's happening noon to 1:30 on Saturday.
I find it a little incompatible with what that's being used for at that lunchtime crowd. Have a workout session going on at the same time. And I just want to make sure, because with Stonehorse Green, there was never supposed to be any, it was supposed to be always open for the public and no fees charged. And I want to make sure that they understand that. So.
Yeah. And I think that's a whole, probably another discussion about just guidelines for what is and isn't allowed in that space. And, you know, if somebody does want to have something like this, who needs to be notified? And, you know, even an event like this, like, since they don't really require a permit, they really haven't had to do much, but I think it'd still be nice to see a safety plan from them. So how they are going to comply.
Well, I think in the future we may have to have a certain policy for Stonehorse Green, because it is a smaller area and you can only have so many people just showing up to do events. So I don't know what to do with that one. So.
Well,
I'm just gonna. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
It's particularly complicated if the event is it's supposed to be an open to the public green space, and if the event is a commercial event, more or less, and they come in with whatever the amount of people that they can have, that means that many less people can be in what's supposed to be open to the public. So it's a very interesting kind of dilemma that we might have to give some thought to.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as a gym owner, Peter Kraus has that advantage of expanding the size of his gym by just having his clients go outside. Great, fine, but in this time when we're limiting the number of people in Stonehorse, he's going to have 25 people in there. He's making bucks off of everybody there. I agree with Dan. That's a very interesting situation.
Yeah, and I think it would be great to have a process to follow for those things. I think right now everybody's kind of like, I think they can do it. So
yeah, sure. There isn't any malice in anyone's planning. It's all brand new.
Right.
Or as long as it's not limited to his clients. I mean, it should be open to the public, period.
Yeah. And that's what they've said, that it will be open to the public, and they will just make sure to cap it at 25 people.
Okay. Okay, so this was a discussion. Do you have enough information, Laura?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, I just mainly wanted to hear your feedback. And while I think it's going to be a long ways off until you guys could feel comfortable approving something, it's still just nice to know for those folks that reach out and want to know when we get to that time, what you'd like to see. So,
right.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I have what I need.
All right. Well, thanks for bringing that forward, for sure.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, additional discussion on the ordinance regarding appointments to city boards, committees, and commissions. Matt.
Yeah, so since our last meeting, I started to go through all of the different committees. And, you know, I had kind of looked at it a little bit before, but certainly this is the first time I've really done it with an eye towards comparing the various committees to sort of the general standards that we'd been kind of looking at. And wow. We, I think, have some work cut out. I mean, I really, you know, well, the first committee on the list, at least in terms of our ordinances here, was water resources. And right away, I could see that there are a lot of significant policy decisions to make on each of these committees. You know, other than a few of them, you know, having some statutory origins for, you know, why we have it certain ways. I mean, at least this first go through, I guess, you know, we could consider a charter ordinance changing some of those, but you know, a lot of them, I'm just assuming that the ones that are set by statute, we would probably leave as is. But I mean, there are a lot of them where we have got some, I think, obvious policy choices being made. And I really don't know if we have any choice but to maybe break this task down and go, you know, try to work through these committee by committee, you know, 1, 2, 3, or however many we can get through at a time, and really discuss what we want to standardize and what we think we need to keep.
But I'm wondering, I'm not quite sure what you mean. Like, if we were to take tonight the water resources, could you give us some direction on what you think are some of the things that we should be looking at, kind of, or is there?
Well, so, well, first of all, I mean, I think, so just take water resources. We've got a variety of terms. So first of all, the constitution of the committee. I think the appointments and who's chosen is all good, except, you know, here we have, as an automatic member, the chair of the Board of Park and Recreation and Forestry Commissions, or a commissioner appointed by him or her. I mean, I don't think that's a real major issue, but I mean, it certainly is something that's out of the ordinary. So I think we need to consciously decide that's a membership that's important for this committee, and we're going to keep it.
Yeah.
And that's one
Okay.
that I guess I would suggest.
That's not common in other committees where they say that the chair of this committee is dictated by who is appointed by another committee.
It's certainly not universal, although I don't think this is the only committee that has membership based upon the office that the person holds.
But to have it be the chair, I think, is kind of
Yeah,
because,
I don't think it's the only one, but yeah, no, that's not, I wouldn't say it's common either.
yeah.
You know, one thing that I'm looking at, we're bumping into, we had I think in our draft, we had talked about like having generally 3-year terms.
I thought we said we changed it to 2.
Okay, yeah, my note says here. Okay, so that will help with a lot of the alderperson appointments. But then we, I think, need to look, because a lot of the alder appointments are on a yearly basis, which it certainly makes it easier, because then you don't have to worry about how much time somebody has left on their term, which is, I assume, why we kept it that way in a lot of the ordinances. But it's certainly not necessary, just requires a little more forethought. And you know, is that something we want to change? Because certainly, well,
Would it be bad to have everybody on a 1-year term, Kathy?
Alders or,
No, all the committees.
wow. I think that would be a lot of, I think that it should be at least 2 years.
Okay.
Dan, you had made the argument that the long, you know, as people get more familiar with the workings of a committee.
Yeah,
Yeah, Dan wanted 3, right?
yeah, I would agree that I think 1 is too little, and I think yeah, I liked 3. It helps keep a certain amount of continuity in the committees if you're not, you know,
Yes.
basically turning everybody over every couple of years.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm not sure we'd need to turn them over. It's just, it gives everybody the choice of re-upping, I guess.
That's true.
And my,
I understand, I
Yeah.
understand that but I would say that the way the system has worked over the last couple of years has not necessarily been like that. And so if you're turning everybody over every couple of years, there's going to be that many more appointments. And I'm not sure that's the direction we want to go. The one thing I know for sure is, as we work through this, didn't we talk about, Matt, having a deadline to have the committee appointments brought to the council? Weren't we going to put that in
The approval, yeah.
So I'd like to get, if we're going in a couple committees at a time, this is going to be a multi-month project. This could go on for a year or better, this project. So
how many committees are there that we're looking at? There's like 20 something.
yeah, there's a lot.
There's a number. Yeah, I haven't counted them.
Where's that page?
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
23 or 4 sounded familiar to me. But
12.
Well, as we work through it, I wouldn't mind seeing that language that we had as far as when they start their terms, as far as the date on the calendar, not necessarily on many years it may be, but when they start, when the appointments come to the council. I don't see why we can't, and I don't remember what those were, Matt. You must have those in your notes, but we talked about, I don't know why we can't at least move forward with that.
You mean move forward and adopt?
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about when we were going to look at all these committees, one of the things that we talked about was making it so that the appointments were made by a specific time.
Well,
so
but right now we have those appointment dates and everything all individually within all of these committees. And so, I mean, we could do that, but it's not just a matter of adopting kind of what we began to draft. It's a matter of going through and beginning to rework the language of each of these ordinances, which, you know, isn't an easy thing to do.
I'd say 23 committees.
Yeah. Let's say I'm just trying to pull up, for me anyway, with our previous. Kind of what we're working for from standards. So. So yeah, we had terms beginning, so the appointments being made by the third Tuesday in May for 2-year terms beginning the third Tuesday in June. And so were we thinking of anything more in terms of when the appointments needed to be made to the council, or is that sufficient?
I'm sorry,
I was wondering, Dan, if you were suggesting that there was some other deadline or something other than appointments shall be made on the third Tuesday in May.
the idea was to put a time frame on those appointments to get them to the council.
Mhm.
So
that
do we say
we
like the
don't-
end of May, they're done?
So that this isn't the getting people on the committee isn't a process that stretches out into
Right.
July, August, September.
Right.
So this would give them a mayor from the first, after the election in
Right.
April, it'd give them four meetings, and at that fourth meeting, being the second or the third Tuesday in May, that they would have to have their slate of committee members
Appointments.
ready. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's
That should be
perfectly legitimate.
Yeah.
okay. So
And I don't know why I'm not sure why we can't move forward with that.
well, like I said, we could, but we'll have to have an ordinance that goes through and amends that provision in every single, which we can do. But I thought if we're going ahead and making a lot of general things that apply to these, we're going to have why draft it here, but I'm going to have something for each one of these that shows that we repealed certain language out of certain ones of these. So I kind of envisioned that we do it all at once, but I mean,
How long do you envision this project taking?
I don't know.
So that I guess that's my point. We're almost to the next election cycle anyway.
So we have the two general things we've decided, right? 2-year terms,
Mhm.
and that the mayor has to have everybody appointed by the third week in May, third Tuesday in May. So,
Oh, the other thing we also decided was that the mayor could appoint, but it has to be confirmed by the council.
Right, but
That
Right.
but the point, but now what we have to decide though is essentially what exceptions to these rules do we want to have?
Right.
And that's what the going through, because we have made a lot of decisions, like I said, with regard to having the chair of these commissions being. So another thing that Water Resources has is apparently the chair of Water Resources is also appointed by the mayor. I'm fine with changing that, but that's what the current ordinance says. And
It does.
Kathy and Dan, why would that be different from the committee voting for a chair?
I don't see that it is. I thought that the chair of the Parks and Rec became the chair. Oh, I see what you're saying. I
It's
see what it
2B.
says here.
A
It's
chair of
just
the
a member.
commission shall be
Oh, right,
appointed
so-
annually.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah, of all the this has
Okay.
the mayor decides who's going to be the chair of the Water Resources
Okay.
Management Commission.
And that doesn't make sense, because we thought the mayor would appoint the chair if it was made up of all alder people, like the Plan Commission and the L&O.
Well, right. I mean, the default system that we are talking about has each body itself appointing its
Yes.
own chairpersons. But like I said, but that's
Oh, and
not
finance, yeah.
not what we have for each of these. And like I said, there's a certain amount of politics involved in these appointments. And so, I mean, I do think we need to go through and make a conscious decision for each of these committees, to the extent our default is different than what we have for the committee.
Yeah.
What are we keeping and what are we changing to the default?
But aren't we just staying apolitical if we say we're streamlining this?
Well, I mean, we can get all kinds of justifications, right? And maybe nobody cares.
I'm trying.
I don't want to make. I'm not making assumptions either way, but
Yeah.
it is what it is, and it's. I want to be prepared to, when this committee presents it to the council, we can say, yes, we did. We are aware that the mayor currently does this, but we think this should be changed.
And we're going to make his day easier by not making him do this.
And some of these maybe are, right now the chair of the commission, this doesn't necessarily strike me as a big deal, but to change, I mean, others may.
Well, it seems like a big one-off from the other committees that are made up of citizens.
Mm-hmm.
The mayor doesn't, in those committees that are made up by citizen members, the mayor's not appointing the chair.
Right.
He appoints the alder, but not the chair.
Right. Here, I mean, my 2 cents on water resources is we'd leave sort of the automatic seat for the chair of the board of park rec.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that would be an exception, but then I would propose that we remove the mayoral appointment of the chair of the commission, let the commission itself appoint its own chairperson.
Which, to be honest, I think is what's been done for the last.
Well, that's the other thing too. Some of these may be like, oops, I didn't realize that's what it says. They've been.
Yeah. We have voted on the chair
right.
every year that I've been on it.
And so some of these things I just don't know, which is why I want. And then, I mean, the only other thing that we got to think about is, for alderperson members, do we want to keep the alderpersons being appointed on an annual basis where we have done that? That seems to make sense to me.
I think that makes good sense to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
One thing I wonder about this, that's the water resources, that's different than any other committee, is that it says that none are required to be residents of the city of Middleton to have expertise. I think by saying none, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right now our default is adult residents of the city of Middleton.
I can understand having 2 positions held open to people who live outside of Middleton because of their expertise. I don't know if all 5 would need to be held open.
Well, what we have done, we do have language in later ordinance, committees that we've created recently. I don't remember which one, but one of the relatively recent ones where we, I think, had language kind of expressing sort of a preference. That
Workforce housing, maybe?
if you need, it could be workforce housing, I think, where if we want this expertise, and if you have to go outside the city to get it, okay, but we could try to work something like that into this.
Just for reference, it says reasonable efforts shall be made to appoint citizen members with relevant experience relating to the creation of, and so on and so forth.
Or perhaps, I wonder if.
Thank you.
I wonder if that could be worked into the general language, saying, wherever appointees shall be residents of the city of Middleton, but wherever certain expertise is called for.
I like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and did you say Kathy, did you say there were 2 spots for people out of town? I think.
No, it said they don't require anyone to be a resident of the city of Middleton for water resources, although 2 of them shall possess expertise in water resource management or whatever,
Okay.
so, if available.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I think that at least gives me some idea and direction to go with water resources. Plan commission. Well, the mayor is the chair and presiding officer.
Some of this is by statute, isn't it?
Well, the number is, but I like the, and I think the mayor being the presiding officer is, but certainly having the chair of Board of Park Recreation Commissioners is not necessarily isn't a statutory thing.
One thing about Plan Commission I have always wondered about, and I think Public Works may be a little like this too. The city engineer shall be an alternate member of the Plan Commission who shall act and vote only in the absence of an appointed member or the inability to appointed member to act due to conflict of interest. Why do we need to have the engineer voting on these things?
That's a fair question, but we thought it important enough in 1988 to do a charter ordinance allowing us to do that. But I don't know if it, I mean, the question is has that ever been, you know, at least in recent history, has the city engineer ever voted?
Well, I think they vote at Public Works, don't they? Dan, do you know?
Not generally, no. Not generally, they don't vote, no. I don't know that I've ever seen where they voted.
And then the alderperson member, are we still electing the alderperson member to the commission?
The council does, yeah.
Council votes for a representative.
By a 2/3?
Yeah, I wonder about that, but
I don't think it's like,
yeah.
I would imagine in most
It's
years.
just a popularity contest. I don't
Right.
know.
I mean, how hard is anybody campaigning? And I mean,
there's not a lot of campaigning.
We've been splits on that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
okay. Well, so what I'm hearing is the only thing that we seem to really be questioning. I mean, so the big change here would be, I've got to double check on the state. I think we can make this I don't have a note here whether this is by statute a 3-year term. But I'm assuming it's not. That would be one change that would occur here. And then it also sounds like we're questioning the city engineer part.
Well, there's some things that the Plan Commission can vote on that take effect without going to council, and maybe that's part of what they're looking at. You know, SIPs or something. And if they didn't have if they had a tie vote and they wouldn't know which way to go with that, I'm thinking maybe that would be something. But
was it written because of quorum issues and the fact that, like Kathy said, you needed to have a vote, so maybe the city engineer, because the way it's worded, it says shall act and vote only in the absence of an appointed member or the inability of appointed member to act due to conflict of interest. So would it be a quorum issue?
Well, it seems most likely, although, you know, it doesn't necessarily
It doesn't state that.
No, it doesn't. You know, the city engineer doesn't vote only if it's, so like, you know, let's say you have one member's missing, so you have an even number, but everyone votes unanimously. You know, it doesn't seem to be a lot of reason to also then have the city engineer cast a vote.
Dan, what are the things that you don't have to go to council for after only the Plan Commission can go ahead after they approve it? Is it sign review and
like minor SIPs.
Minor SIPs and stuff.
A minor SIP modification.
And what would happen if there was a split vote where it didn't have how would that be resolved?
Then it would go to the council and the council would have to resolve it.
Yeah, and interesting, even under this language, you know, let's say let's see if 2 people are missing. I think it's still, yeah, because 4 members constitute a quorum. I mean, you could have the city engineer vote and create a tie.
So maybe we need to look back to see why we did that in '88, and it could be just a thing of the past that we don't need. It doesn't make any sense. And during the period of time that I've been on Plan Commission, I don't know that Sean comes to any meetings. Ever. Unless we specifically request his presence.
Won't he be so happy when he learns that we can tell him he's got another meeting he's got to
Yeah, that, hey, you've been skipping out on your responsibility here. Where are you?
Yeah, I wonder, I mean, 1988 is a while ago. I wonder if, I mean, we have files going way, way back, but I'm not sure if we have.
Well, just from the fact that it hasn't been used in anybody's recollection, can't we strike it if we so wish?
Well, we can certainly strike it if we wish, yes. I don't think that's a problem.
If there's a tie vote, can you call for another vote? Do people ever do that? If there's a tie vote, that's.
Well, it ends at the council. Anything that happens in any committee, if it's a tie vote, then it just goes to the council without a recommendation, and the council has to decide.
And it's only a 1 week delay because
Right.
it's always follows, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing would be if it's one of those things that the Plan Commission decides itself that doesn't go to the council.
But then it would have to go to the council.
Yeah, and it would be rare.
Well, it could. I'm not sure if it automatically does.
Well, if somebody wants an approval for something and it ends up in a tie vote and they don't get approval, I'm sure they're going to want it to go to council.
Well, they might be able to get there through some of our appeal procedures, but
Yeah.
I mean, a tie vote is not passing.
That's
So,
right. Yeah.
That absent.
And then it would be an appeal to the council. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if the appeal is available, to the council, sure. But okay. So I think I've got some direction on that. Right, let's see. Yeah, board of review is statutory, so there's nothing we're going to do with that one.
They're appointed for 5-year terms,
Yeah.
and we want to keep that, right?
Yeah.
Why?
I think we would have, well, board of review, I think is one in particular. It's good to have people there a long time because that can be fairly specialized, learning the rules, understanding how the presumption of accuracy works. You hear more evidence. That's a good one, I think, to have people with more experience. For sure.
And then they just one loops off every 5 years, or they're reappointed. So,
right.
okay.
Yeah. Frankly, I wouldn't be upset if that were longer, but yeah.
I think 5 years is a pretty big commitment for a citizen to take on. I think that's long enough. A lot happens in 5 years.
Well, they can always decline the appointment.
Yeah. Or you can quit.
But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about the zoning board of appeals or a different board
No,
of
this
review?
is called Board of Review.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, property
Board of-
assessments.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so they've got to sit and try to decide, property values year by year, and that's kind of has some expertise. The Board of Police Commissioners, this is all going to be largely statutory. I do have a question here that I think I've got to yet answer, but at least for purposes of discussion tonight, I don't think we really need to do much with that.
So this one doesn't say anything about electing a chair. It doesn't say anything about how long they serve, right?
Right. And
So-
so one of the things I may need to check and see whether there are things in the statute that might conflict with what we've got for
Yeah.
the general, but
And appointed by the mayor. We want, and this part would be the confirmed by the council. So okay.
well, I think the statute specifically says that that this is just appointment by the mayor. This may be
okay.
one of the ones where you don't get any say. Let's see,
It is pretty specific, Matt. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah.
It says consisting of 5 citizens, 3 of whom shall constitute a quorum. The mayor shall annually, between the last Monday of April and the first Monday of May, appoint in writing to be filed to the secretary of the board 1 member for a term of 5 years. No appointment shall be made which will result in more than 3 members of the board belonging to the same political party. But that, yes.
Yeah. So
How did they get to ask that?
You can't find that in Dane County.
That's a fair point too.
It's a nonpartisan city, so I don't think the question ever comes up.
yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so that, I mean, this one I might need to just double check and make sure that that anybody reading our ordinance understands that there are other statutory provisions that contradict this. But I don't see us making a lot of change there. Then let's see, Public Works Committee. I think this one is largely untouched, although this does not expressly say anything about approval by the council, which
We want that.
Yeah. So.
Well, this one under appointment, letter C, it does say in here, in addition to the members above mentioned, the city
Right.
engineer is appointed as an alternate member of such committee, and the alternate shall act in full power of any other member. So.
Right, and so that's another thing. Is this something we want to keep for Public Works? And certainly, I think city engineer participation makes more sense for the Public Works Committee, but I mean, the logic of removing that makes just as much sense here as well.
I have no problem with them participating, but voting is another issue.
He says it shall act with full power.
Yeah, I don't think that
I think we strike it like we do on the Plan Commission. Because Sean is already there as the staff member, so he's participating.
Right. And everything that happens in Public Works goes to the council. There's nothing that they do that.
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think by statute, there are some things that we could give them, but I think our practice is everything does go to the council.
Yeah, we like that.
Yeah. So I think our discussion may have addressed my questions for PRFC. So we're just flying right along. Oh, one thing I did have a question on. I don't know. For some reason, I don't know why we have appointment of the city forester as a subsection of the PRFC.
Where is that?
Sub 5.
Oh, okay.
City forester. I'm not sure that's something we need to tackle in this effort or not, but
I don't know that we do this. I think that it's, I think public lands is.
We're turning rocks over.
Yeah, I don't think we do this. I think that we have, Mark was the city forester, and then now we have the new guy, and I think that that's done by
Matt
public
Amundsen.
lands. They do. That's an in-house. It's a position, not an appointment.
right. Yeah, it's an actual employee.
Yeah, it's an employee
Rather than a.
This may be back from the days before there was a city forester, maybe.
Is that Harry Libby?
Employee.
Well, I'll check up on that. See, it might just be something that it's some kind
We
of.
can strike that out too.
Okay. Library board. That one is largely. I think all of this is.
We don't have anything to do with that, do we? That's a,
Well, and a lot of this is, I think, also statutory.
right.
I'm just looking to see what notes. Yeah, I'm not sure there's anything really to change there. There. Yeah, the only what I need to check is see if statutorily that's a 3-year term.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what my note is there. I don't know how many of these we want to.
Do you want to quit here, or do we to give a break between the next meeting, or?
Yeah, yeah, because
That would be good for me.
my notes
Okay.
are. I'm gonna need to
Well,
go
that
and
was
review my
good.
notes right away to make sure I know.
We
So,
must have knocked off, 8 of them
Yeah.
or so we
Yeah.
can knock it down.
well, and and I'll go through them again because, like I said, as we've gone through, some of my notes that I had have sort of been answered. So that might be the case for some of these other ones too. So this might be a good place to stop, and
Okay.
I'll work this up a little bit more. And
Okay. One committee I've always wondered about is Landmarks Committee. They don't have an alder on that, and I think we should have an alder representing, something coming back to the council that represents the Landmarks Committee.
all righty.
All right. Let's see what else is on our agenda. Oh, look at that. Nothing.
All right.
Motion. Anyone want to make a motion here to adjourn?
I will move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's
All right.
adjourned. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Yes.
Have a
Thank you,
good
everybody.
night.
Aye.
Right.